But what we're here today is I'm going to show you guys how to do some curve piecing. I'm going to show you how to set this quilt top up, the one that's on the wall. I have it all in parts over on the another wall. We're going to go through trimming and the foundation papers, and then just a whole bunch of different curve piecing techniques. I'm not going to just focus on one technique. Every time I pick something up and do some curve piecing, I'm going to show you something just a little bit different. Because curve piecing is one of those things you have to get your fingers trained to do, and there's different ways to approach it. So I'm going to try to cover a good portion of the different tips that we do. So bear with me. There might be a lot of information there, but it's all good information. And some of you will like some of the techniques, and others of you will go, no, I'm not doing it that way. And it doesn't really matter in the big picture which way you do it. So, okay, so let's go to the other wall. And I need to find a couple rulers, so give me just a second here. Got to get rid of this thing. There we go. All right, so I'm assuming that you guys can see what I'm doing here. I kind of have this all set up as in an exploded view. I'm going to show you how to do the trimming on this piece and then sewing it into a piece that has a whole bunch of spikes already in it. I'm going to show you how to do the little piece onto this piece here. And then we're going to do all the trimming. But something that's interesting, as I like to show a lot of people, is the difference between a project before it's trimmed and after it's trimmed. All right. And I want to mention something as well, that if you guys get all this done and you make a mistake, and you figure out that something is too short, the best way to fix it is to go ahead and trim the whole thing down, and then you come back and you remove the paper, and now you're just into traditional sewing. All you have to do is pick the seam out and replace the piece that's bad in there. And you can use the template as your template piece to cut a new piece to put in there, because the template that you pull out, the piece that you pull out, it'll probably have its smart corners on it, and there's just all kinds of and it works really well. If you try to repair it with the paper on it, you can't get in underneath it. All you have to do is just trim the whole thing down and then take that and pull a piece out. And so I'm going to kind of go over that a little bit with you as well. The other thing we're going to do today is we're going to sew this group of blocks together. I'm going to talk to you about pressing and clipping the back side of your curves. And then we're going to join these pieces onto it as well. So when I'm done, I'm going to have a quarter of my quilt basically done. So we're going to start with these units right here. Open up our instructions. And where we're at is we're in the last chapter called Blank Borders. And in this chapter, it told you how to cut out all of your big squares and rectangles and the little corner squares that we're going to use. And all of these different sizes that are on the templates that it shows on page 16 can all be replaced. So like if I don't want to build this spike, I can actually take that template and just cut out that piece in one color fashion. And it's the same way with all the templates on there. They're basically T-templates that match the size of the foundation paper. And so that's one of the things that's fun about this series of blocks is There's so many variations you can do, because you can put in full pieces, part pieces, you can change out all your spikes, and you can change out your rectangles, you can put them into squares, and so it's really fun to work with and play with. And in the big picture, you really, if you like just playing with blocks, they're very easy to build into scrap units. So you can do a lot of scrap fabrics for all of your spikes as well. You can use scraps in your backgrounds. And you don't really even, if you have a whole bunch of leftover pieces from previous patterns, you can actually design table runners out of them, placemats out of them, pillows out of them, and you can do large quilts out of them and design your own settings as well, because they're all just rectangles and squares that fit back together. So on page 18, if you turn the page there, well, actually, let's go back to 17. So on page 17, it starts, there's some just basic curb piecing steps that I'm going to go through, but I'm going to give you a lot more information than what's in here. And then underneath there, there's all the color combinations. So when you put this on the wall, one of the things I want you to realize is it's really easy to sew the wrong pieces onto the wrong sections. And that's something I do all the time. So, and then I get to go back and fix it. But like I can flip these blocks and get different designs out of them. So I can turn these, I can turn this one. All of our B groups all fit together. So I could have one of these out in here. There's just all kinds of different ways you can put it together. But if you want it to look exactly like the cover sheet, then you want to pay attention to the way your color is set up. And what you'll find is the white goes against these three spikes here, but then the white goes on the other side on the center blocks, because these spikes sew into the spikes in the very center. And so just pay attention to the way you have them laid out. It's the same thing here. We have yellow, yellow, blue, blue. And then when you get to the other corner, that's going to switch on you. So you want to pay a little bit of attention to how your colors are going together. So this is what I was saying about the spikes in the center. So this white section here does not have it's not next to the spikes, okay? So that's what all that color combination is. It just tells you which pieces go where. And then when we get on to page 18, after you get all the curved piecing done and the blocks built, then you start assembling all the rectangles and squares. And in the first layout on page 18, it has block layout number 1, and then it shows a block layout number 2. And so the reason why is because those are two different colorways, so pay attention to that. Block layout number 1 has the red block, orange, pink, and yellow, and the other one is green, blue, teal, and purple, okay? Depending on how many colors, it's the same layout other than the colors have been changed. And then we start the assembly process on it, okay? And we'll go over that after we get through all the curved piecing. But this is basically where we're going to be working today, is on these last few pages. And we may have to flip back and forth between them. So I'm going to set the book aside. And the first thing I'm going to do is show you how to trim. Now, we pre-trimmed this piece because we just got really excited about getting all of the excess off. We forgot to leave one for me to trim on this. But I want to bring your attention to the B1 unit. All of these little spikes here are real wide, and they fall on the grain line along here. And so you're going to probably have to clip this in order to get that piece to fit, all right? And there's a couple of different ways to clip. Let's see if I can find these. When I clip, I like to use my curved scissors, because then if I clip too far, they're usually off to the side, and it's easier to see where it's going to go. So I'm going to show you two different processes. So one way I can clip is actually just come in here and clip these slanted pieces right there. That works really well. But I think one of my favorite ways to clip when I am on the straight of the grain like this is to actually go through and clip little V's in here. So I'll clip it one way and then come back and clip that V like that. The other thing I like about the little V's is when I do my pressing, it doesn't seem to matter which way I press. It really lays flatter for me. So I like to do these V's. And then the other thing you can do is when you're clipping the V is you can actually come in here and clip a V on the upper layer. It's actually in the seam allowance. I don't normally go all the way through it on this one, through all four layers of fabric, but I just clip it where all those overlaps are setting right there. And I just do it on the part that's loose from the seam allowance. Okay, I like to do my clipping before I remove my paper, because once I figure out that I'm going to clip it, I can see where my sew line is, and I don't have to worry about clipping in too far on it. The other thing I want to tell you about clipping is if you don't need to clip, then don't clip. Okay, you should always try to sew your first curve in without clipping. And if it goes in just fine and spreads out really nice, then you shouldn't have to worry about clipping at all, because you can clip so much that the piece is too big. It just stretches too easily, right? Since this is all on the straight of the grain, those little pieces, I've done enough of these now to know that I want to do the clipping. So now, can you guys see how those little holes are set up? That might be a little bit better way for you to see, but you can see all of the different V's, and you can see it on the back side of the paper. Can you see it?
You put it against the black fabric, I think it might be easier to see.
There. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So we have that clipped. Now we're going to remove the paper from here. And when we remove this paper, we want to start on the very last section. So the last section on this one is section 9. So your paper comes off a lot better if you start at the very last one. And I like to get it out of the little corners, so you're going to have a whole bunch of little tiny paper pieces. And if you can't get a hold of them with your finger, then just grab a pair of tweezers and you can grab them with your tweezers. This is the kind of thing you do the night before you know you're going to sit down and start doing your sewing. I leave my papers on until right before I'm ready to sew, but I'll usually sit down the night before and remove all the papers. If I have a whole bunch of units that I know that I can't really tell the difference of whether they're a left or a right, or they're an A or B, then I'll take the fat paper that has the unit number on it, and I'll just pin it to the top of my stack. And then when I'm putting them on the wall, I remember which unit that is. Okay. For now, I don't need that. So we have this piece ready, and then we're going to sew that piece onto this one. So I'm going to use my leaf ruler here, and I want It has a sticky side to it, and then it has the top edge. I usually flip it over so that, because this side slides on it a little bit better, and I can manipulate it when I'm actually going around these curves. When I am doing my cutting and I have a whole bunch of papers like this to trim, I know a lot of people say, oh, when I'm doing paper piecing, I use my old blades. When I'm doing paper piecing and I'm cutting, I use a new blade. And the reason why is because it saves my wrist. If I'm working with an old blade, I have to push twice as hard just to get it to cut through the layers of fabric and the paper. So I like to start with my new blade when I start trimming my papers. And we're going to trim there. And we're going to trim this one. Okay. And then that piece is going to go on there like that. And while we're trimming, let's go ahead and trim this one. And again, we're just going to take and run the ruler, and I just keep sliding it as I'm going around my corner. And it protects me from, it just leaves a really nice clean cut for me if I have that ruler there. I like to trim my curves first and then come back and do the straight lines. I don't know that it makes a difference. It's just kind of a habit I've gotten into. Okay, so I want to point something out on this particular piece. So the way these are designed, these spikes all overlap each other. So we have our section 1, section 2, section 3, section 4 overlaps all 3 of these pieces. Section 5, then this one overlaps these 2. Section 6, this one overlaps these 3. This, and this overlaps. So let's say we get all done and we realize that we made a mistake in here, or it didn't cover something. You're going to just take that piece and throw it away and make a new one. And the reason why is it will take you longer to try to pick all of this out and put it back together than it will take you to start over with a new piece. So it's anytime you get into foundation paper piecing that has all of these overlapping seams along one edge, you may want to consider just throwing it away and starting over with a new piece in there, because it's impossible to actually do any type of repair on it, because it's just, you can't get to the seams. You would have to pick every single one of these seams back in order to get to this piece. So what I suggest to people is when they're making a block like that, before you move on to section 3, make sure that your section 1 is positioned properly. And always check these as you go when you're making these units to make sure everything is covering with the area that it's supposed to be, because it is really difficult to try to fix something like that. All right, so we have this one cut. Now let's go ahead and let's trim this one up. So I'm going to do my inside curves first. This one has 2 TRP lines, so I want to sew my TRP lines. Now I will tell you that when you're doing this quilt, you may or may not use those TRP lines. So what I suggest is, if you don't want to pull them out, then just go ahead and when you're done, you can slit that paper and do a little mark underneath there where it's at if you want. All right. I like sewing TRPs because they actually you see them from the front and the back. And when you start doing curved piecing and you can't see them because you marked it on, it's marked either on the wrong side, because whenever you put two pieces together, you can see the TRP on the back side, or what I'm saying is that if you mark it, you can see it on the back side, but you normally can't see it on the front side because most people don't mark on the front side of their fabric. And so now you're having to flip it over to try to find all those marks, and you spend more time trying to find those marks than you would actually spend picking out that TRP. All right, so let's go ahead and trim this one up. And I love the leaf ruler, works really, really good for these blocks. And it's the transition between that fits onto my B groups, right? And we're going to flip it around. So both of these holes in here are the same size. So I can put this one in here, or I can put this one in here. Or I can put them over here and put them over here. It doesn't matter because we've set these holes up on, when we redid our 4th of July groups, we actually made the holes the same size. On the older patterns, if you have one of those older patterns, the two holes are different sizes. One's a bigger one and one's a smaller one. But on the newer elements, they're all the same size. Oops, we're not very straight there, so I'm going to clean that up. All right, so you guys are going to watch me remove the foundation paper from this, and I'm going to grab a fold template. When I have lots of these layers going, I like tearing right along the edge of the fold template. And then we're gonna take this one and gonna lift that up. I'm gonna grab I have my purple thing here. And it's not going to make a lot of difference if I have that exactly where it's supposed to be. Now, notice that I did not clip this. And the reason why is because this is a big, gentle curve. And if I clip it, it'll end up too big, and I'll have to start easing it in. So there's no reason to do any clipping on it. However, I am going to do some cleanup on the back. So if I actually fold this back, I'm going to cut the dog ears off. So I like to, if I fold something back and I have a dog ear, then I like to trim it off. If I don't have a dog ear, then I don't trim it off. So I'm going to trim this one. And that's really the end of my dog ears. Right here, this seam comes right down onto the point. And anytime I have a seam that comes really close to my seam allowance, I like to take my scissors and I put them right there and I clean that back. And these are my curved scissors. So I have this little rounded edge there. And it really removes a lot of bulk from when you're trying to match those seam allowances. The other thing I'm going to do is, because this is all, when I go and I start turning like this to do my curved piecing, all of these seams are going to pop up. And the other thing that's going to happen is if my threads are not, when I was doing the stitching, if any of that's loose, it's going to back off probably 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 inch. And so I like to prepare myself when I'm doing something with a lot of spikes. So what I do is I take, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can use this glue pen, and I'm going to do part of it with this glue pen. I'll take that and I'll fold the seam back like that, and then I'll press, glue that solid. Then I'll open the seam up and I'll glue it again, all right? The other option we have is if you want to get rid of that bulk, you can actually take your curved scissors and you can clean every one of those seams off to take that excess fabric underneath. And this works really well. I like this process, but I still have to glue it down. So we're cleaning off the rest of the seams. Okay, and now I'm going to take my glue pen, and again I'm going to take this, glue that down, and glue. The disadvantage here is that if I do that with all of these and then I have to pick my seam out or pick a line out, a lot of times it starts spraying on me. Excuse me, because this glue holds those fabrics together really tight, and it causes it to fray. It doesn't give. So I'm going to show you another product that actually works really good, especially if you have to clean something up. And this is the acorn glue, and the tip may be plugged in it. We're going to see if it's, oh, actually I don't think it is. This is a heat set glue, yeah. And I find that when I want to put my seams down, this actually works really nice, and it's really clean. And I can run that and put it right on the back side of each one of those seams, and then I put it on the front. And it's clean, so it really has some advantages, and it's softer. It's also a softer glue than this, so when I get this on there, it doesn't turn as well as this heat set. So we're just going to go ahead and finish putting glue on the back of those seams. All right, so we have that, and then I'm going to hit that with my iron. Need to get my iron up a little bit. Okay. All right, so now when I go to roll this around, it's just like rolling a normal piece of fabric. It doesn't, all of the seams don't stand up, and they're all glued down so that they're not going to move on me. Okay, so I'm going to show you 2 ways to approach your curved piecing. One is leave the paper on the one that's on the bottom, and the other is we will remove the paper. Okay, so on this piece I'm going to leave the paper on this one, and then I can put this piece on the top. Right, these don't have TRP lines. They're small enough pieces that we shouldn't have to worry about it. So I'm just going to take this, and I can fold this piece in half, just like that. And I can see that that actually comes out right at that center line on this one. So now I know that this is my middle mark right here. Okay?
There was a question, Mom. What brand of iron are you using? Do we actually know the brand?
No, no. It's an antique iron. It's called it has a Durabilt, D-U-R-A-B-I-L-T, but it's an antique iron. It is cool, but it gets really hot. Hot enough sometimes that I can burn my fabric. So You have to, but we were looking out online, and every once in a while we run into one online. The other thing about them is they have the old cotton cords, which aren't really the safest cords to use. But anyway, it's fun to use because it's old. And just don't leave it on all night. It's not fun when you do that. Okay, so I'm gonna take this and I'm doing the bit so I get a crease there to exactly what's this one. And it actually looks pretty much well. And basically move that just a little bit. Now it's in place. I'm gonna run along the border inside, and I run, and then I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna last perfectly along that. Now, all right. So I don't know if you guys saw me do this, but right underneath the paper there, that will slip away. So what I did is I put just a touch of glue to hold the fabric to the paper on that corner. And then again, we're just going to glue the last inch to 1.25 inches. And then we're going to match. And then I'm going to put a little pin right along that edge. Okay, so see, now you can tell that because I clipped all of that, that this is just setting down in here really nice. And I can actually just finish gluing the whole curve on there. If I have paper under there, I glue it, okay? If I don't have paper underneath there, I normally won't glue. And I'll just fit them together as I go. But with the paper under there, the top has a tendency to move just a little bit. So I like to get it secured and make sure that I don't have any movement. And plus I can match up those raw edges really nice along that. So I have a nice curve there. We're going to start here. And when I'm gluing, I like to start from the edges. And now I'm going to pull that pin out of the center and make sure that this just kind of fits naturally the way it wants. And now I have this nice little curve. So if I leave the paper on, I just sit down and get all my pieces ready to run through just like that. And you can sit there and do that at an ironing board. If you want to use this acorn glue, it works too, and then you just heat set them as you get them glued on there. Or if you use your this isn't actually Fons and Porter, but it's your glue stick, then you can use that as well. They both work really well. Okay, after I get this on, I'm actually going to pull those 2 pins off to the side on this piece because I have it glued really well, and it allows it to move a little bit freer in there. Okay, so we're going to take this piece now and we're going to go to our machine. So we're going to just start sewing, and I have a really tight stitch there, and we want our needle down, and now I'm going to go back up to my normal stitch. So as I'm sewing, if I feel like I'm going to get a pucker, then I just pull back right along the back fabric there, and that's why I pull that pin out before I start. In. So the other disadvantage, this is a disadvantage of having paper under there, is that when you have the paper under there, it's harder to sew. If I had removed the paper after I had it glued, it would be sewing a lot easier, and I wouldn't have to worry about any puckers or anything in there. All right. If you're a beginner, working with that paper is a pretty nice idea because you can also flip it over and see if you're actually sewing a 1/4 of an inch line. All of mine came right out on the line there. All right, so now we have that little piece done. And I'm not going to press it yet because I'm not exactly sure which way I want to press it. So now we're going to take this piece, and this one is supposed to fit because this one fits up in that upper corner. So yeah, this one fits right like that. So we're going to take this piece and then we're going to flip this on here. So I'm going to work a little bit different now with a different technique. So these are bigger seams. And I'm going to start right here and I'm going to put a pin along this edge. And then we're going to grab our glue stick, or glue pin I should say, and I'm going to pin or glue that edge about 1 inch to 1 1/4 inches along that line. Okay, so see how I have that set up? Now I'm going to take this after I get that one on, and I'm going to find where my center is and just keep that folded back. And on this one, I know that my center was right on that seam. So I'm going to place that center, nope, the center falls on right here. On this one. And then I'm just going to place the fold right in that crease. And again, I'm going to put a pin in there just temporarily. I don't like sewing with pins, so I just put them there for a little bit. Now we're going to take this one, and we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to pin this edge first with the long flower pin, because I want that to be straight along there. And now I'm going to come up here and I'm going to glue. If I don't use glue, then I have to have 2 pins along that edge. All right. But with the glue, I can actually do 1 pin and then the glue stick. All right. So now I have this piece laying down on the floor, or the table, I should say. And I'm going to actually pleat it. I'm going to start right in here, and what I'm going to do is it's kind of like a spiral. I'm folding it into a spiral. So I'm actually taking all of my pieces and I just keep twisting them right here as we go to where I have all of my pleats, and see how that fans out that and sets that up to where it just lays right along there like that. I can actually just go to the machine and start sewing, and it'll sew really nice. But if you're new, you may want to put a little bit of glue along there. So I can take this, and I'm just going to glue it for you guys. And notice that I'm not doing any clipping along there. Okay. Now I'm going to remove that center pin, and we're going to glue. And just so you guys know, I always glue from the outside to the center, because if I'm going to have some fullness that I have to ease in, I want that to be in the middle of my block, not on the edge of my block. Because if you ease in all that fullness along the edge, then what happens is it gets distorted, is the best word I can say, and it just doesn't lay down very well. Okay, so now that I have that done, I'm going to pull that first pin out, and I'm going to refold all of this and just twist this around. And then I'm going to go to my machine and we're going to start sewing. And so it looks like that. Now on this one, we're going to grab a little piece of paper and we're going to start sewing on the paper. I'm going to downsize my first few stitches. I'm going to go to about a 1.5. And we're just going to set this underneath there and let the paper pull it. Okay, and after we do a few stitches, I'm going to actually go up to a 2 on this because I don't have a lot of, there's no paper underneath it. So it's going to ease in really nice for me. And notice how I'm just pulling that back. And every time I pull that back, it flattens the fabric for about 1.5 to 2 inches up there on the top of the curve. And then when I get to the end, I'm going to downsize my stitch again so that I sew off of that edge there. And I'm going to actually grab my stiletto. And I'm going to hold that seam down so it doesn't flip back on me. There we go. And we'll grab this, take this pin out. And when I lay it down there, I have this nice straight corner. And this is nice and straight. So when you're doing curve piecing, make sure you match your ends and work all of the excess into the middle, okay? And if you do that, your blocks will square up for you properly. Now we're going to take this one and we're going to put it in here. And I prefer to have the paper off because I know what I'm doing. But if you guys are new to it, go ahead and leave the paper on and sew it that way. Get it all pinned and glued in place. And then after you get the, before you go to the machine to sew it, remove the paper after it's all glued. And I think you guys have probably noticed that I'm not doing any, none of my seams or curved seams overlap each other. So I'm not doing any pressing on them yet. I'm going to do all the pressing at one time. That way I'll know that I'm getting all the opposing seams where I want them to be.
There's 68 curved seams in the quilt.
68?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, last night I sat down and the ones that are on the wall, when I'm not talking, I work a lot faster. And it only took me an hour and a half to do all of those. So they don't, once you understand how to do curved seams, they don't take very long. All right. And the less prep you do for them, the faster they go. But you want your curves to look nice. So if you're new to them, you need to practice at them. All right, so let's take this one. And I'm going to find the center on it. And this one doesn't come out right at a seam line, so I have to crease it. But it does come out at that center point. And then we're going to take this. And I'm going to fold and lay it right in the center. And then we're going to put a pin in that spot. And it's just temporary. And that's the way you're going to start. Then we're going to come in over here and we're going to put our first, glue our first corner. So about 1 inch to 1.5 inches, and then you're going to lay that right down there on that corner. Okay. And then I do want to, before I go any further, I wanted to show you guys. So on the back of this piece, see when I flip it off, see that long dog ear there? So that's that very last seam. There's a really long tail. I like to just take that and clean that off. So see, I just basically cut it off, and now you can see how it comes back. And now when we start sewing our blocks together, I don't have all of those long tails there, right? Now let's take this one. I'm going to pin it first, this edge. All right, so we forgot to glue this edge here. All right, so we have that fitting. Now, on this one, I'm not going to do any gluing. I'm just going to leave the pins on the 2 side pieces, and we're going to do this one right at the machine without any gluing at all. Okay? We're going to grab a piece of paper. We're going to start sewing on a piece of paper. And when I finished my last piece, I didn't change the stitch length. I'm still at a really tiny stitch here, so I'm just going to start sewing. And I'm going to sew about 1/2 inch in, and then I'm going to increase my stitch length to 2. I'm going to remove the first pin, and then I'm going to find that center pin, and I'm going to take my fingers and I'm just going to line the curve right up with my fingers and hold it with my fingers. And I'm dealing with the fact, remember I told you to glue down those seams? I didn't glue the seam down on this one. And so now I'm having to deal with the fact to keep that seam flat, because I don't want the pressure foot to just come up and push it up, because it'll leave kind of a fold and a knot there. So I need to go slow over that, lift my pressure foot and let it set down on it to keep that flat. So if you think about it, remember to actually glue those down, because it does really help. And you'll have the end results is better. Okay, so I'm not pulling the pin out of the last one, on the last side, but see how I am actually pleating this right here at my machine. So now I've got that laying down again, so I can just hold that with my fingers. All right, so that's my center piece. So this one, now that you guys are all back, this one's actually an easier one to do. So all I have to do is just take and pin and glue my sides. And you don't have all of those pleats in it, so it really rolls around nicely. So do the easy stuff first. As you start teaching yourself how to do curve piecing, work with pieces that don't have a lot of spikes in them if you can. And then once you start getting the concept of what you're doing, then you can go to the pieces that have spikes. All right. So this one, we can just take this. See how easy it is to actually pleat it up once I get that. Then all I have to do is just come in here and just start doing some glue. And I work that. So these are pretty little curves, so I don't worry so much about this finding the center on them. There we go. Once I get that, I'm going to pleat that up. So when I take it to the machine, I can hold on to this corner. Okay, I'm going to grab a little chunk of paper that I threw in the garbage. And we're going to start sewing on our paper. My stitch length is still tiny. Go back. Okay, so so in the center, none of these curved seams match. So we're going to press everything out from the center, okay? When we get over to the outside, we're actually going to have opposing seams. So what I want to do is I'm going to press this seam here all the way, and I'm going to press all of them in the same direction on this one. When I get to this, these are going to be out, this one's going to be in, this one's going to be all the same direction, this one's going to be this way, and then this way, okay? So we're going to take these two first, and there was that fly that's been around, and I'm going to take this one, and that's going to be all pressed. This is going to be pressed in. So remember when I talked to you a little bit about those little V's? Well, I'm going to cut some little V's in these pieces as well. Because I'm going to press these in towards the spikes. And I'm going to get my acorn pen here, and I'm just going to put some starch on that pen, on my fabric there, I should say, my seam, and then I'm going to press those in. Ooh, it looks really nice. And this little iron has no steam in it. Okay, so now when I go to these, I'm going to press these out, and then this one's going to be pressed in. It's always hard to get the lay down pressing in towards those sticks. So if you don't have to do an opposing seam and you're okay with stacked seams, then I would just do the stacked seams. We're working with Tula Pink fabrics, and they're a little bit heavier than others, and so I usually like to work with set it up for opposing seams when I'm working with heavier fabrics. They just the quilts lay down better. And there we go. All right, so we have these pieces done, and this one is my center, and this one is my corner, This one sets in here like this. All right, so I'm going to press these really quick, and these are all going to be pressed. These will press really easy because I don't have to change any directions on them. And you can speed up when you don't want to watch me. That's the nice thing about what you guys are doing. All right, so we are ready now to actually sew our 4 blocks together in the center. So this one goes here, and I believe this one goes here. Now, I'm going to look at my picture really quick, because this one says my yellow's there and my orange is here. Okay, so this square is going to be sewn on, and it doesn't matter where you start with this. It can start on any one of these pieces. So we're going to take this one, and then I'm going to stack it onto this one, and then I'm going to stack it onto this one, and then I'm going to stack it this way. And we'll see if I mix it up. Because sometimes my stacking process doesn't always work for me. So I'm going to lay it down here just to make sure. So this one is this piece. This one is this piece. This one is this one. And this one goes here. So I think I have them backwards now. This one goes here. So let's look. My yellow. Oh, I guess it doesn't really matter because I twisted it anyway. So I'm looking at what's on the cover page, which is that we have the quilt on the wall different. So this one's yellow. This one is my red stripe, and this one is polka dot, and this one's polka dot. So actually this one's supposed to be here because Judelle is supposed to set it up. No, that's not right.
I don't think I did that on those. I think I just followed a color. So
Yeah.
I went red, orange, yellow, pink.
Yep, you did.
In the corners, and then.
Because if I change them to where it's the polka dot spike, then it puts my 2 corners in the wrong spot.
Yeah,
okay?
I think I just went for color.
Yeah.
The color concept there.
Okay, so we're going to do it right the first time. So this one goes here. These 3 are the whites are at the spikes, and the middle one, the spike is on the big piece. And I'm going to sew this down I'm just going to do halfway on that. Okay, and I want to sew it from here down to here halfway. And remember I told you to clean off all those long little spikes? I didn't do that last night. All right, so I went a little bit further than halfway. So now I'm going to open this up, and I'm actually going to press these into the square block, because if I try to press them out, I can't get all of those overlapping seams to press. So these are going to be pressed into the block. So we're just going to take this and press it really quick. And then I'm going to take this piece, and before I sew, I'm going to snip off that long tail there. Okay. And now these two pieces match up. And there's a TRP line. Remember we sewed those TRP lines? That TRP line is right here, and that matches up to my seam. Okay? So I'm going to actually take that, match it, and I'm going to slip a pin right there. And then I'm going to make this one match. I'm not going to just sew and see where it comes out. We're actually going to take and put some glue along that edge, and we're going to have a perfect match there. And then we're going to do a perfect match here.
Elizabeth says, right the first time. Where's the fun in that?
I agree. We should make these 3 times. We'd probably save ourselves a lot of money if we made them 3 times.
You mean because you wouldn't be able to move on to the next project?
Yeah. Or we'd be out on the social network selling the ones we'll never get done.
Yeah, on our Quiltworx community swap board.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys should all follow that. Community swap, our Facebook support network, Quiltworx support network.
Yeah, well, just be careful, because on occasion I read that and I'll see names and somebody's out there and they're selling all their patterns, all their kits that they're never going to get done. And then you watch, and the week after they sell them all, they're out there buying more.
Well, Mom, it's a compliment.
Is it? I'd say it's an addiction.
Yeah, well, that too.
As soon as we design one on Quiltster, we go out and we design another one, and then we have to start another one.
So you're saying we're addicted too?
Yeah. All right, so I'm at these seams, and what I want to do is find where I put my stiletto. Can you guys see it? There it is. And then I'm going to hold that seam so it doesn't flip back on me, because this is one of the ones that I press the other direction. And then we're going to take this one. There we go.
Someone said they want to get to the new stuff quicker before it gets old. I mean, it's fair, right?
Yeah, but when you have us sitting here playing with new fabric line, it's a little bit unfair, because we're just barely getting the publications out, and we're already having to design for next year.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you guys have no idea. Sometimes we're designing for almost 2 years in advance.
Okay, so I'm going to press this seam so that it goes in towards the square as well. But see how everything matches here. There's no having to trim it off. Everything gets eased in. So we're going to take this one, and I'm just going to do a quick press here.
Someone said, have you ever sewed your stiletto on accident?
No, I haven't done the stiletto yet. I've seen template plastic sewing.
Fingers.
Oh, come on. Did I show? Oh, well, it doesn't work when you turn it to the off position. It was already on. There we go. Yeah, I had done a couple fingers. Okay. Now we're going to take the next one. So just remember, half seams make it really easy to go around a square. And we're going to match up the TRP line right on that seam. And once we get that in place, then we'll come down and I'm going to check. Yeah, I already trimmed that one. So I'm going to glue this side. And I actually am putting the glue about 3/4 of the way up on that square. And then I'm not gluing the rest of it. I don't need to glue the rest. And then we're going to glue this. And we're going to make that match. So it matches on the outside. The feed dogs are going to ease in the rest of it. Then we're going to match this one. And again, we're going to press this towards the square. And so now then we're going to put this one in. Match the TRP lines with the seam. So one of the things you need to think about too is if you're not setting the quilt together around a square, you don't need those TRP lines. So if you know how you're going to put your quilt together, then don't worry about sewing the TRP lines because they're really only used when you're sewing around the square. And we'll get that glued. And on this one, I actually glued a little bit too far. Or not glued, but sewed in on that square a little too far. So I'm going to pick it back just a little bit so I can get to that seam. And we have that. All right. And now all we have to do is join this seam. We're going to sew that on. Match that up. We don't have to match the inside because it's already sewn to here, but we're just going to put the glue on the outside. I don't know if I told you guys, but this is one of my favorite quilts. Working with the block groups that we use for the 4th of July. Press that last seam. All right. And there's our first block. All right, so now we have to figure out, well, which side's the center? Well, this is the center. And nope, this is the center. No, this is the center. Well, if that's the center, then you guys let me pick it up in the wrong way. You guys weren't watching very close.
Why?
Huh?
Which part?
Because this piece is supposed to be here. See that? It's your fault today. But see,
right, pick out do-over. You guys
yep.
get the point, though.
Yeah. So we gotta come in here and we gotta back this one off to here. So this is really easy to fix. Just we're gonna back it off to here. And then we're going to back it off to here, and then we'll flip it around, and then we'll be correct. So anyway, that one was my fault, I think. But anyway, that's wrong.
Elizabeth says, oh, you have a date with your senior.
Yep, this one has to be turned. This one is actually the one that goes in the corner. This one has to be turned around. So I'm going to show you how I rip things out, because all I have to do is just take this and get it started. And I just use my rotary cutter. And all I do is touch the threads.
Yeah, Sherry says, oh, just make it a new look.
Yeah.
She already told you. So
I haven't made a 4th of July quilt or anything that uses these blocks yet that I have not had to take it out. So it's like I have to go home, take a picture of it, send it to Geodes. She sends me back a picture with a whole bunch of circles on it. So they're all backwards, Mom. Pick them out, put them back together.
All wrong.
It's a lot easier to make these if you just put a whole stack of fabric and you put your template on top and you just start cutting out all your spikes, and then you just sew them together and you don't look at Quiltster.
Well, she already said earlier that you could move the blocks around and flip them and play with it if you wanted to. You didn't have to sew it together in the order we did on the wall.
I did, but I decided that I'm not. There's this thing about Mom and her mistakes the last couple months.
We've had a few around here.
Yeah. So, look, that's the way it's supposed to be. All right. So now all I have to do is join that, resew that piece, pull all my threads out, and then we'll put the others. But while I'm doing this, let's we'll sew up the other blocks too, and I'll show those groups. My certified instructors that are over there, they're used to all of my mistakes. They're probably over there counting them right now, going. So. All right, so let's find my TRP line. The other quilts I always make mistakes on are my rainbow quilts. Anytime I have to put something together with rainbow colors, I usually get half of it sewn together wrong.
Jane said, isn't the center part flipped? I don't think so, but
no,
if you put that up.
Did I flip it again?
I think what you're sewing together right now is that bottom corner. The one on the quilt on the wall, if you look at the bottom corner.
Well, should we put it on the wall before we sew it up wrong again?
I was gonna say you could put it on the actual wall that, or on the quilt that's on the wall.
So this one was supposed to be here.
Hold on, I'll show them what you're doing. I gotta switch videos though.
And this one.
Give us a second. I gotta switch over there. Okay.
There is something wrong with it. What's wrong with it? Oh no, it's right.
No, that's good.
Yeah, it's correct. That
yeah.
goes there, and then this is my center.
Yeah, and when it comes to the one on the wall, she doesn't have those blocks on the, they're not in the exact same spot as the ones that are on the wall. Like you need to turn the quilt. We need to turn the quilt 90 degrees on that wall.
Yeah, this one's sideways from what I'm working off the picture. Yeah. So we're gonna take these two, and I'm gonna put a pin on my sew edge, because if I don't, then I'll mess that up. Okay, so those two edges are sewn together, and then these two edges are sewn together, and again I'm going to put pins on my sew edge.
Yeah, so what Jane's saying is maybe your spikes that are sewn in the center part aren't in exactly the right spot. But even then, like, so we have...
Yeah, because see, this one is orange and mine's teal, because I'm actually building this.
Yeah, you got to turn yours the other way.
Yeah.
But so if you match the one on the wall, it's flipped. Well, yeah. So
this goes here.
Yeah.
So if I match this one goes like that, and this one is like this.
Right.
Which I'm correct. That one's like that, and that one's there.
Right.
I'm correct.
So I think we're, but yeah, it's always good to double check it for sure.
Especially after you do it backwards once.
Yeah. So she's working on a different corner on the quilt that's on the wall behind her than the way she had it positioned on the other one.
Yeah.
So it's probably good to make sure that when you put it on there that you're using the cover quilt picture or something to actually make it match. So Jane says, "Oh, sorry, but you know what? I mean,
it made me think twice, and that's not a bad thing.
There's no reason why you shouldn't look at it a couple times. Because what is she doing right now? She's sewing it again because she made a mistake."
Well, I did the whole applique on my last class backwards, so.
That is true. When we did the one for Pocket Full of Posies, she got an applique section on wrong. So
not 1, 4.
Well,
all 4 borders. But it's fixed.
And that's really hard because she had to pick the applique off of the quilt.
There was 26 hours of intense labor in that one.
Jane says, "Well, that's the one I'm working on now." So yeah, definitely make sure your applique is in the right order.
Don't sew any of that applique on until you get your borders done. Lesson learned.
Last video we did all the way through before you finalize your applique.
And I actually am going to sit down and do another video because I learned actually quite a bit about picking off that applique, and I want to share it, but we just haven't had enough days to do it. But the quilt is done and it looks awesome. Okay, so we're just about done. So the biggest thing, now I'm gonna sew this seam. I want to press it first.
Karen Brimley's watching and she says, "Ouch, I've had to unsew applique also, and it is totally worth checking your placement."
Yeah, and I was doing machine applique. I was able to pick it out. With embroidery applique, I don't know if I could have redone that. So you need to make sure when you're doing applique that you have it in the right place.
Well, actually, you wouldn't have made that mistake with the embroidery.
Oh, because it would have been...
The embroidery is digitized, and so it only goes on one way.
Oh, you're right.
So you would not make that mistake with the embroidery. So I don't know if everybody understands what I just said, but you would have, if you would have put your pieces on to the embroidery section and then sewn and then started to try and stitch it out, it would not have matched because she's got it digitized to go the other direction.
So press that seam. And then we're gonna, this is my center.
Hold on, I'm on the table, not on you, so I gotta, okay, go ahead.
There we go. And then this one. So none of these seams match when you're putting the border, so you can press them whatever way you want. I'm going to press them towards the big. The only thing that might, I have to check the pressing on the curves. So I'm going to put it on the wall before I press those. And then we're just going to be consistent and press them all to the big block. Now, I don't know that it tells us that in the instructions. Let's look at our instructions for a second. On my instructions, it's actually telling me to press to the square. So, cool. I knew what I was doing. Well, maybe. So this one is going to go here. And then this one.
So the pressing instructions are on page 19, just for you.
And they're the little arrows.
Yes, the little arrows that are on the diagrams there.
So I press this one in, so this is pressed down, this one's pressed in, this one's pressed out. This one is pressed out towards there, so I need to repress this section right here. Okay, so now then this piece is sewn onto here, and we're going to pin it so that we don't sew it to the wrong side. And then we have opposing seams on these pieces.
Fix my view here. Elizabeth says, I don't make the mistake just once. I do it 5 times just to be sure. Just ask Celeste about my sandstone spires. That is one thing about mistakes, is you can always laugh at them once you've corrected it.
I always laugh when I read the support network when somebody brand new, this is my first quilt and I want to make sure I don't make any mistakes. I just like, okay. Let's see. Maybe you won't on your first, but I can guarantee you will on your second and third and fourth. What I'm doing is cleaning off these little tails that I didn't want to sew in. And I have one right there. Right, so now to see, this is what I'm sewing here. So when I get to big pieces like that, I don't use my glue anymore because there's enough fabric there that you can get thick pieces to ease together. If I'm working with a lot of curves like I do on my Technique of the Month, then I pin all of the TRP lines. Now, there is a matching spike. So the two spikes that come together, let me show you which ones they are. Right here, that actually matches at that seam right there. So when you're putting this group, these groupings together, this matches right there. Okay, and they should lay right in and nest together because they're set up with opposing seams. And then we're going to take the next one, and it has an opposing seam. This comes together with opposing seams, and I'm just going to lift it and make sure that it's locking like the way it's supposed to. And then where these two spikes come together, those are going to be opposing. And I have a little bit of paper right there. I'm going to clean that off. So I got those matched. And then we're going to match the corner. So everything went together without any real issues. So this when you look at this, this seam's going to match, press this way. This seam's going to press this way. So what you're going to have to do is, there's a couple things you can do. Sometimes you can come in and flip this one and pick out, let me find my stiletto. Sometimes I can come in and pick these seams out right here, even though they're not together as a 4-patch. And then I have another one that's right here. And by doing that, sometimes that'll actually allow you to press them in 2 different directions, and sometimes it doesn't work that way. So I can take that and do the same thing on these, where these opposing seams come in. I can pick that back as if it was a 4-patch. And we'll see what happens. If it's a 4-patch, I know what it's going to do, but sometimes when you have these long pieces like that where your seams have to go the other opposite direction, you don't always know where that's going to end up. So I usually will try it, and if I can get them to press in opposite directions, then I do. If I can't, then I just accept it, and then I twist the seam. Okay, so we'll see what happens here. So this one's going to press that way, and this one's going to press that way, and then this one, see, I'm going to, no matter what, I'm going to have to twist the seam on here in order to get this press here and this one here. And the reason why we can't just press it all in one direction is because of these really heavy overlapping seams right here. You just can't get those to press back. So since I have to twist it, I'm just going to cut a little V right in that area and a little V in this area. And then we're just going to let this do what it needs to do, and we'll press. And right here, that's where I'm going to twist it. So if you're building a quilt and you have straight seams, it's easy to get everything to press in opposing seams or press the same way. But when you start twisting things and going around corners, you start changing the orientation of your blocks, and you don't always have that control. Right, so this one goes here. Look at that. So far, so good. There we go. We have one more seam to join here.
It's 3:12, by the way, just so you know what time it is.
It's what?
3:12.
Am I supposed to be over at 3?
No.
Oh, well then we have plenty of time to finish. And these are opposing seams here. And I'm going to clip my little seam there. So this method of sewing is called clip and match as you go. You just kind of do what you have to do as you're sewing it together. So now this one's going to be pressed to this direction. So let's go ahead and get that pressed. All right. And we have one more to put together. So this seam's going to match here, but nothing else matches. So we have an opposing seam here, and we have these pressed to the right direction here. I'm good there. The only thing I have to do is repress this seam. I like to make sure these match at the wall when I'm doing this, because it's really easy to match these two pieces over like this if you start there, and then when you go to sew you're like, uh-oh, something's not fitting. So I like to get them to match at the wall. I've done that a few times. All right, so we have everything pinned and ready to sew. So I matched my first 2 seams that we're supposed to lay together. Those are the spikes. Once I get the spikes matched, then I'm going to come back and I'm going to put the opposing seams together on the curve. And those are just wanting to not match as nicely as I want them to, so I'm going to put a pin in it because I'm going to have the bottom one. There we go. So then I'll just let the machine ease that bottom piece in. Right. So if you have opposing seams and they don't seem to go together for you the way you want, then lock them together, and the piece that is where the fullness is that's allowing them not to come together, what I'm going to do, like right here, my bottom piece is if I let the machine just pull on that, I'm not going to have a match. So I'm going to actually pin them exactly where they're supposed to match, and then I can hold on to the fabric and the machine will ease in that excess on the bottom. And all I have to do is just lift my fabric just a little bit, slow my sewing down, and it'll just basically gather in that excess underneath. And now I have opposing seams that match. We're going to clip this one. And that's supposed to match, and it does. And let's see if it's correct. It's looking pretty good, you guys.
Also, I got a note from Donna. Yeah, that she'll take the...
She wants me to send it to her?
Yeah.
Well, cool.
So.
All right, so right here where these 4 pieces come together, we have to find another pair of scissors. I lost the first pair. We have a 4 patch here, and so what we're going to do is clip back here, pull those threads, pull these threads, And then we're going to flip it so that we can press the center of those in 4 different directions. Now I'm going to have to take this out to my steam iron. And I'm going to twist that seam back in here. So I'm going to clip back here. And we have a quarter of the quilt done. It's not pressed perfect yet, but it looks good. There we go.
Sweet. All right.
So the next video I'm doing is on one of the quilts that's in our box club.
Yes, March 6th.
It starts on March 6th, and it's the center to, what's the name of the quilt?
The Tuscan Sunset.
Tuscan Sunset. It's a mixer, and it's in 4 parts that takes the whole year. So each quarter you get another one of the boxes that has the next round in it. So if you guys are looking for something to follow us, and it goes all the way up to a queen size quilt. And Judelle can actually show you a picture of it, can't you?
Well, yeah, you can also show them the box, because there's other stuff in the box too. We talked about it on a couple videos, but grab, is that one? Oh yeah, that one's.
Yeah, this one's the one that has stuff in it.
Yeah. So let me switch to a different view here so they can see everything.
I'm gonna have to shut my iron off now while I'm thinking about it.
So the boxes have lots of other stuff in them too.
Yeah. So this box has a glue pin. It has a book of coupons from a whole bunch of shops. 25% off, 20% off, free gift, all the way through here. A whole bunch of shops, and then there's also some certified instructors in here. And there's a little flyer there. So you get in this box, this one comes with it's called haystack cookies.
Yeah.
And what it is, it's a little tiny quilt done on a 2.5-inch strips, and it's actually really cute. And this makes the table runner, right?
Yes.
So
that size makes the table runner.
This one makes just this little table runner right here. But if you get more of them, you can actually make it into a bigger quilt. Is that the way that works?
Yes.
Yeah. And we do sell these extras. And then we also have a table runner in this box.
Well, actually that's just in there.
Oh, somebody just fit it in here. Well, I'm going to show it anyway. So this might come in somebody's box.
So if you do, so we have the large project, and then we also have a small project option. And this quarter's small project is
this table runner.
So,
and it's on a Tula pink fabric, one of them. And then the other one, it looks like it's out of our Traditions fabric.
Yeah, someone said the overhead shot is upside down while Judy's unpacking. Yeah, that's just the way that she put the stuff down. So it just is what it is. She could, yeah, there you go. So anyway, to back up just a second before you show a little bit more, someone said, I tried to order this box quarter and delivery date was December 2024. how do I order the box for this quarter? Okay, when you go to the box website, which is box.quiltworx.com, you need to choose the seasonal table runner option, which is the one that delivers for the first quarter. And it will say that at the top of each of the patterns, but you want to go for small box and then choose the seasonal table runner. If you want the large quilt where you make the pieces quarterly to make one project, you can order that as well. We have two options left. We have a CAFE version that we have, like, we're down to, like, I think 6 of those are left. And then we have you can buy just the pattern only. And if you buy the pattern only, I'm going to show you really quick. You can get the pattern box, which will ship out the first quarter right away now because that one's passed. But then you can go to, I'm going to go out here. So you can go to the marketplace and you can choose quilt kits. And in the box is a 25% off pattern or coupon for the Quiltster Marketplace if you choose Quiltworx. So if you go to Quiltworx or Quilt Shops here, and then you scroll down and find Quiltworx, click on that. And then that will sort out for any of our kits on the Quiltworx page. And one of these you could do at 25% off. So we have 3 other colorways here, and we have like just a few. We have like 3 to 6 of each of these options. You could buy those with your 25% off coupon, and the pricing almost comes out identical to what it would have cost if you would have bought the fabrics through the box.
Is that,
if you do it that way.
Is that the Tuscan?
Yes.
Yeah. So the class on the Tuscan is actually the feathered star, one of our feathered star blocks.
Yeah, hold on. I got to switch to the other view, Mom. Okay, you can. So the class that we're doing on March 6th is the center of the Tuscan, and it's actually a feathered star unit. It's a 16-inch feathered star. Right.
It's actually, I believe this is the feathered star that's part of the that big one that's out right now with the wagon wheel.
So in the big box, we also have, well, in each of the boxes, if the blocks are used in other quilts, we'll put a little note in there. So the big box has a note, so that feathered star is also used in Steampunk Fairy Tale and Iceberg Ridge and Wintergreen and Peaceful Snowfall. So it's used in like 4 of our other quilts. So once you learn how to make this technique, you would just use that same block and technique in the other designs. So anyway, if you have more questions about it, there's also a group on Facebook called the Quiltworx Box Club. So you can look that up on Facebook and then join that group. And then you can catch up on all of the discussions and the plans. And I know several of you who are watching us are also going to be part of that. So, but if you're not and you want to join us, we'd love to have you. And I think, is there anything else we want to?
No, I think we're done. We can say.
I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. I will be editing this video and reposting it to YouTube. So I'll be doing some other fun things too. I might try to go cross-country skiing, which I have never done before, but well, I've done it twice. All right, are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
All right.
We'll see you guys later.
Yeah.